In the last lecture, we have studied what are resources, what are natural resources, and what are the factors which they include. Okay. Along with that, we have started studying a new source of or the resource of energy. Now, the resource which is available on the earth is land. Along with that, we have seen what is the role of land as a resource in the life of human beings and living organisms. Now, due to over exploitation of this resource, that is because of the over exploitation of the land, we have seen some of the issues which are facing right today. Now, one of these is land degradation, that is we have already studied in the last lecture. Now, in today's lecture, we are going to see or study what is a soil erosion. So, this is another issue which we are facing right now. So, erosion is displacement of solids, that means soil, mud, rock and other particles by agents of water, wind, ocean currents or ice by downward or downslope movement in response to gravity or by living organisms. That means because of these agents, water, wind, ocean currents or by ice, the soil erosion takes place. Erosion is an intrinsic natural process, but in many places it is increased by human land use. So, though we are saying intrinsic natural process, but when the natural process is happening or the reaction is occurring, the rate of erosion is very low as compared when there is a human interference, okay, or because of the human are using land, that accelerating the rate of soil erosion. Poor land use practices include deforestation, overgrazing, unmanaged construction activity and road or trail building. So, all these are man-made activity, or these is a form of human interference in the nature, and by this mode or by these processes we are over exploiting a source, that is land. However, improved land use practices can limit erosion using techniques like tree planting and terrace building. So, in the prevention or the control of soil erosion, we are going to discuss these 2 points. What are the causes of soil erosion? The amount and intensity of precipitation, that means rain. So, the amount and intensity which of the rain, okay, can cause soil erosion. If the raindrops are bigger and the intensity or the pressure which they are exerting on the land is high, in that case the soil erosion rate is high. The texture of the soil. Now, the texture of the soil, that means the water holding capacity of the soil. If the soil has good water holding capacity, in that case the soil erosion rate is very low. That means what the soil particles or the molecules can trap or hold the water molecules, resulting the different soil particles or molecules are held together. Okay, that's why the good water holding capacity is a phenomena which can prevent the soil erosion. The gradient of the slope, that means the soil erosion rate or on the slope or on the land, okay, in both the places the rate and the amount of the soil which is loosed or the lost by the soil erosion is different. On the slope, because of the gravity, the soil erosion rate is high. Ground cover, that means from vegetation, rocks, land use, possibility of erosion of from speed of stream. From vegetation, that means if there is a very on the land there is a very less vegetation, because the roots of plants or herb shrubs, okay, or any vegetation is holding soil, and soil is holding water, okay, resulting less soil erosion. But if there is a very less vegetation present on the land, in that case that may cause soil erosion. Now rocks, okay, because of the activity, or when they are falling from the slopes, okay, at that place or at that time the soil erosion takes place. Now land use, that is over exploitation, and possibility of erosion from speed of stream. So when the water the water is flowing from very high speed, okay, along with that stream the soil particles are carried away from that stream, that causes soil erosion. Now what are the different agents are responsible for the erosion? So the first one is gravity. So mass wasting is the downslope movement of rock and sediments, mainly due to the force of gravity. So when because of the gravity there is a downslope movement of rock and sediment. The process of transporting agents like streams and glaciers from a higher elevation to a lower elevation. So all these processes are because of the gravity. So mass wasting is slow and continuous process. So we'll see there are two terms in the gravity erosion. One is slumping, okay, that is happens on the steep hillside, and the other one is surface creep. It is a slow movement of soil and rock debris by gravity, usually not perceptible except through extended observation. So we'll see what is a slumping, that happens on a steep hillside. That means the rocks or the sediments which are falling from the main the mountain or the steep side, from the steep side. Now surface creep, that means the movement of soil and rock debris, okay, because of the gravity. As you can observe in the picture, there is a downfall of this rocks and sediment. So these two things, or these two terms or the observations are done in the gravity erosion. So what are the surface creep? Okay, when this rocks are falling down from the main piece of land, okay, or from mountain. In that case, because of the saltation because of the creeping, the movement is creeping. In that process, the small soil particles are suspended in the air. Okay, so you can observe the saltation and that rocks are creeping. So that causes soil erosion. Now next one is water erosion. That is, water is acting as an agent to cause soil erosion. Splash erosion is the detachment and airborne movement of small soil particles used by impact of raindrops on soil. And another type of erosion which is caused by water, it is sheet erosion, is the result of heavy rain on bare soil where water flows as a sheet down any gradient carrying soil particles. Okay, first we'll see what is a splash erosion. So as it says, it is a detachment and airborne movement of small soil particles due to impact of rain or the raindrops. So as the raindrops are falling on the ground, on the topsoil layer, and because of the intensity of raindrops, okay, the soil particles which are present on the topsoil layer gets loose, okay, and they are free to move in the air, and that movement is called as a airborne movement. So it is a detachment, that means soil particles are detached or they become detached from the top layer soil because of the raindrops. Okay. So that is splash erosion, and the next one is sheet erosion. It is because of the heavy rain, okay, that you can observe that on a land when there is a heavy rain occurs, okay, or in the region where there is a heavy rainfall, what you can observe in that region, the water is flowing from the on the land and it is forming a sheet. That's why it is called as a sheet erosion. And because of this stream or the flow of water, the large particle in the large amount of soil particles are carried away with the stream. So that is a sheet erosion. Okay. Now it is possible only when that precipitation rate is very high as compared to soil infiltration. That means soil can absorb some amount of water, and if that absorption or the filtration rate exceeds, in that case sheet erosion occurs, or you can observe. That means the rainfall is heavy as compared to the water holding capacity of the soil. Now next one, or the next agent, is ice. So ice erosion is caused by movement of ice, typically glaciers. Glaciers can scrape down a slope and break up rock and then transport it, leaving moraines, drumlins and glacier erratics in their wake, typically at the terminus or during glacier retreats. So as you can observe in the picture, that because of the movements which are happens in the glaciers, okay, maybe it is because of the entrapped water compressed, or may freezes or expands. Okay. So this fluctuation in temperature can cause a breaking of rocks, okay, and these are transported through glacier ice, okay, and because of the aberration that forms a small balls or the pieces, these are called as a moraine. So this may cause, while transporting or while moving from the glaciers, this may cause ice erosion. So ice wedging is the weathering process in which water trapped in tiny uh, rock cracks, freezes and expands, breaking the rocks. This can lead to gravity erosion on steep slopes. So because of the gravity, this moraines or drumlins passing from the slope of glacier, and that is responsible for the ice erosion. The next agent is wind. Wind erosion is the result of material movement by the wind. There are two main effects. First, wind causes small particles to be lifted and therefore move to another region. And secondly, These suspended particles may impact on solid objects, causing erosion by abrasion. So, because of the wind, the soil particles may pass or they come into air and they are lifted. That means they are in the air. These are called as that means they are suspended in the air. So this is called as a suspension. Otherwise, these soil particles are lifted and deposited at another position. That is the second case. That suspended particles may impact on solid object, causing erosion. That means the solid objects which are coming across while moving, okay, they can cause abrasion. Okay. This is not only the any other non-living thing, but it may be rocks or any sediment which is present on the topmost layer of the soil. Okay. So this is a soil erosion. Now next erosion which you can observe at a shoreline, so which occurred on both exposed and shelter coast, primarily caused through the action of currents and waves, but sea level, that is tidal change, can also play a role. So because of these two reactions or the two actions, you can observe this shoreline erosion. So first one is hydraulic action, takes place when air in a joint is suddenly compressed by wave closing the entrance of the joint. This then cracks it. That means the some amount of water or air, it is already entrapped on the soil or the land which is present at the seashore line. Okay. And the bigger part or the larger part, it is called as a headland, that is a mainland. Now because of the action of this waves, okay, or the tides, the cracks may occur. Okay. And if this process continues, okay, or because of the continuous tidal actions, okay, or because of the tidal waves, you can observe that cracks has enlarged, and this is forming sea cave. And the prolonged action of tides, this area enlarges and forming arch, and ultimately or the eventually you can observe this portion, okay, it is separated from this headland. That means they are forming cliff too because of the hydraulic action. So it is nothing but when air in the joint is suddenly compressed by wave closing the entrance of the joint, and that cracks it. Okay. And what is abrasion? Okay. When it is caused by waves launching at the cliff. Okay. That means after the cliff formation or during the cliff formation, the material which is present on the beach, okay, the sand, rocks, are thrown against the cliff, that is which is already separated. Okay. And the process is called as abrasion. So hydraulic action, it is nothing but the force of the waves crashing into the cliff. Okay. And the air in the cracks in the cliff is compressed with the break up the rock. Okay. So hydraulic action, it is because of the wave, that is morely because of water, and abrasion is because of with the wave the material which is flowing, okay, that is rocks, sand, or any other sediment, that is acting on the cliff, that causes soil erosion. So this scenario which we can observe particularly at the seashore line. Now you can observe there is a sudden difference or the big difference between these two lines. Okay, so that is a topmost soil layer, and there is a big deep or the big difference between these two level of the soil. So that is because of the soil erosion. What is the impact of soil erosion? The first one is loss of soil fertility. So when there are conditions in which, or the arid condition, that means in the conditions where the water scarcity or the humidity is very less, the soil does not soil particles do not hold the water. Okay. So in that condition you can observe loss of soil fertility, because with the help of water bacteria can grow, okay, which are helpful for the soil fertility. Along with that, decomposers also need the water, and that may, because of the absence of water, can reduce the soil fertility. Loss of pastures. Now because of the low level of aquatic vegetation, so the pastures are nothing but the area which is only for the cattle feeding, like for example cows. Okay. So when there is the soil layer is not holding the water, resulting there is no vegetation. So no vegetation means the area or the small herbs and shrubs, okay, or the grass is not available for the cattle, okay, for the feeding. That's why loss pastures. Expansion of desert. When the conditions are arid, okay, or that continues for the prolonged period of time, then soil loses its healing property, or we can say to regain its water holding capacity. So resulting there is a formation of desert, and if there is already a desert area, okay, we can observe because of these conditions or because of soil erosion, the desert area expands. Increase in frequency of droughts and floods. So as we know, because of the soil erosion, the soil particles are not able to hold the water properly, or the water holding capacity of the soil molecules reduce, resulting a drought, that means scarcity of water, and floods when, because of the soil erosion and the soil particles are not able to hold properly the water molecule, when there is less vegetation, and in that case there is a heavy flow of water or heavy rainfall. So water can soil particles cannot hold that water, that is infiltration rate is very less as compared to the precipitation rate. So that conditions may cause floods. Washout of upper layer of soil, especially along hillside slopes. So because of soil erosion and also wind and water, these two agents are acting, okay, there is a washout of upper layer of the soil. Now that means what are the nutrient or the good layer of a soil which is present at the top layer, that is wash out, okay, or it is not available for the vegetation to uproot in that soil. So this thing or this impact which you can observe along hillside slopes, because slopes are indirectly favoring to soil erosion. Uprooting of plants due to cutting, thus responsible for deforestation. So when because of the cutting, that means there is not a plantation, okay, in that particular area, resulting uprooting of plants. So plant roots are holding water, that's why the water molecules are present in with together, okay, or they are holding each other, so thus responsible for deforestation. So formation of gullies and ravines, and the whole region becomes an undulating area not suitable for human activities. So because of the soil erosion, the area or the soil which is present in that area, it is not good for the human activities, okay, because the land is not giving a firm substratum to build any structure, okay. So in that case, to live, okay, even to transport, okay, from that path is not good for the human beings. Now the gullies and ravines, okay, these are the, we can say, a short stream, okay, which is formed by rains, and in this region you can observe soil erosion. Now soil erosion, that means the area or the, in that particular area, the soil particles are not holding properly water, or they are in loose, okay. Because of the water, the soil erosion takes place, okay. Although there is a water, so plants can uproot, but in particular area you cannot observe a good vegetation, that's why it is not suitable for the human activities. And by which way you can control soil erosion? So there are certain methods to control soil erosion. So examples of some soil erosion control methods include, first one is no-till farming, okay. That is also called as a conservation tillage or zero tillage. So we'll see what is a no-till farming. So no-till farming is an agricultural technique for growing crops or pastures without disturbing the soil through tillage. So no-till farming decreases the amount of soil erosion tillage causes in certain soils. That means once you have cultivated or certain crops, you have planted the seeds, afterwards you will not, or the farmers do not disturb that particular land, okay. So that is called as a no-till farming. So the main advantage of this process or the conservation method is to reduce the reduction of soil erosion. Along with that, there are certain other benefits which farmers have observed. The first thing is fuel saved, okay, resulting money is saved. For the tillage or for the till farming, farmers have to move from or across the farm. So when there is no disturbance, that means resulting it is saving fuel, and fuel saved is money saved. Along with that, it is saving time and improving soil health, because there is no human activity after the plantation, okay, that's why. So it is improving soil health, okay, and resulting economical benefit, or sorry, ecological benefit. So increases water holding capacity if we compare the with conventionally filled fields. So when there is a less disturbance to ecosystem or in a particular area in which farming is done, so organisms can play a better role in that particular food chain or food web, that means in ecosystem. So that's why no till farming is important to control soil erosion. Now when you observe that tillage farming, okay, in uh, that tillage breaks the earth's surface and it turns it over and moving the cover layer inside. So as a result, the bare soil is subjected to erosion, okay, because of it is loose in structure. So the soil which is deprived of cover matter, it is subject to quick erosion, okay, due to water flows, especially in the slope or the steep areas. So along with that, rain is, or the rain flash is another issue in the tillage farming. That's why no till farming is a good method to control soil erosion. Now the next method is contour plowing. Is the farming practice of plowing across a slope following its contours. That means a region where there is a slope, okay, in that region, to prevent soil erosion, this contour plowing is done. In contour plowing, the plowman plows perpendicular rather than parallel to the slope, generally resulting in furrows that curve around the land field and are level. That means the plows which we have observed or mainly done on the plane surface are parallel, okay, but since it is a slope area, you can observe this plow or the plantation is done in a perpendicular, okay. So that reduces soil erosion. That means a good vegetation, the roots will entrap the water molecule and resulting less soil erosion. Now this the with the contour plowing, okay, the the soil erosion is reduced, okay. The next method is cover crops. So is annual, biennial or perennial plants grown as a monoculture. One type crop grown together, that means annual, biennial and perennial plants, okay, are grown together. This is called as a monoculture. That means one type of crop grown together. So in this picture, what you can observe, that is in the whole farm only cabbage is cultivated. In the next, sun hemp is cultivated, and along with that you can observe cowpea, okay. This is not a monoculture, okay, or polyculture. That means multiple crop types grown together. So at the upper layer or the on the top layer or the top picture, what you can observe, it is a mixed cultivation, or it is called as a polyculture. That means grass or cowpea plant, sun hemp, okay, this type of plants are grown together. This is called as a polyculture. Now what is the importance to form a cover crops, okay, or to cultivate crops in a polyculture to improve the conditions associated with soil and provide nutrients to the agricultural crops. Okay. So different types of crops if present in the farm, okay, or in the agriculture area. So different type of roots are having the different rate of water holding capacity, or as per the plant the water holding capacity of the roots, okay, is different. If there are leguminous plant in that polyculture, that may increase the soil fertility because the nitrogen is entrapped because of the leguminous plants. Along with that, because of the different plants, different insects and organisms are attracted over that in that area. So resulting, you can observe a small ecosystem or the interaction between biotic and abiotic factors. So with the impact of all these factors, okay, the water quality or the soil fertility is increases, and the main aspect is it is reducing the soil erosion. The next type is riparian strip or strip farming. It is a method of farming used when a slope is too steep or too long, or when other types of farming may not cause soil erosion. So the seeds or the crops are cultivated in strip. Okay, this is also called as a strip farming. It is done on the slope. Okay. So these are in the strip. Now next type of method, or the next method is riprap. Okay. It is also known as a riprap, revetment, short rock, or rock armor. Riprap is a rock or other material used to stabilize shore. So as you can observe in the picture, a different size rocks are gathered at one side, okay, and they are preventing a water flow, the resulting soil erosion. So riprap reduces water erosion by resisting the hydraulic attack and dissipating the energy of flowing water or waves. The shape of rock is important. Coarse angular rock, usually made by crushing or blasting or from scree, is more effective at ground reinforcement than round river rock. Okay, so the rocks which you can observe at the river are more round as compared to the rocks which are present at the shoreline. Okay. Now because of the interlocking or the correct mixture of aggregate size can also aid riprap's ability to create interlocking structure. So it is reducing the hydraulic action of the seashore line, okay, which is resulting a soil erosion, or that is responsible for the soil erosion. So because of this, rocks are interlocked, okay, and they are constructed in a such a way they are resisting the pressure of the water flow. So that is reducing soil erosion. Now the next method is terracing. In agriculture, a terrace is a leveled section of hilly cultivated area designed as a method of conservation to slow or prevent the rapid surface runoff of irrigation water. Often such land is formed into multiple terraces, giving a stepped appearance. So as you can observe in the picture, that is the terracing, okay, or the it is a form of farming, okay, which is done or practices in the hilly region. So in each step the cultivation is done, okay. So this is more famous for the rice cultivation in the hilly area, and this is a method by which the rate of soil erosion can be reduced. Now, another method is windbreaks or shelter belt. As the name suggests, that is breaking wind. So a windbreak or shelter belt is usually made up of one or more rows of trees or shrubs planted in such a manner as to provide shelter from the wind and prevent soil from erosion. They are commonly planted around the edges of fields on farms. So the windbreaks or the shelter breaks, that means the trees which are, or the big trees or the shrubs, okay, are planted in a such a way that, or in a such a way that they are preventing the farm or the crops from the wind, okay, or from the forced wind flow. So it is, if designed properly, windbreaks around a home can reduce the cost of heating and cooling and save energy. So if you observe in the picture, so the large or the fully grown trees, okay, are changing the way of flow of wind, or it is changing the angle of wind. So that's why the nearer area or the crops are getting protection. So prevailing wind direction which you can observe, but because of the plants, okay, it is changing the angle and direction. So the nearby area gets protection. The next or the big issue which is human population is facing now is desertification. Okay, that is because of the over exploitation of water resources and even soil resources. First we will see what is a desertification. Desertification is a process in which the soil loses its productivity as a consequence of degradation or pervasive dryness. So soil loses its productivity, that means there is a less water holding capacity, less fertility, and it is the soil is not able to, or it is not good for the cultivation. That's why in a desert area you cannot observe a good vegetation, or we can define by another way, that is desertification is the degradation of land in arid, semi-arid and dry humid areas. So arid area, that means where the humidity or the amount of water content is very less. Now semi-arid, that means the some amount of water or the half amount of water and half amount of air or the dryness is present, and the another one is dry humid area. Okay, so it is caused primarily by human activities and climate variation. Human activities, that means because of the overpopulation or the population explosion, individuals or the human beings are trying to exceed their habitat or the limit. Okay. For that they are trying to exploit different source of energy. Now one is, that is one of them is land. So that causes soil erosion or the resulting desertification. And climate variation, that means because of the natural calamities or because of the temperature fluctuation, we can observe a desertification. The process involves loss of regenerative capacity of soil due to extreme depletion or absence of plant supporting factors. So plant supporting factor, that means water, along with that some bacteria or the decomposers which are taking part in the closed cycle. That means when there are decomposers or the microbes which are present on the land, they are decomposing or converting the organic matter which is present in the form of either leaves residue, twigs, barks, or the animal residues or the bodies. That decomposers or microbes are degrading that complex form of molecules into a simpler form of molecule, that is different derivatives of molecules of carbon, nitrogen, okay, which are more accessible for plants, okay, or they are easily utilized by the plants. And again plants are, because of the seasons, okay, or for the because of the aging, the leaves fall down, or the twigs or the humans which are died. So all this material is again available for the decomposers or the microbes. So this closed cycle of nutrient, okay, may get disrupted or disturbed because of the desertification. That means when the soil is dry, okay, there is no microbes or the decomposers are available for the plant to decompose the organic material. Along with that, plants are not getting supporting factors. That means the prominent or the main one is water. Along with that, because of this decomposers and another factor, the minerals or the micronutrients are available for the plants for their growth. So these, because of all these factors unavailability, there is no vegetation and resulting soil loses its regenerative capacity. That means once they lost their regenerative capacity or to become a fertile, okay, fertile, that means the soil can produce crops, okay, or it is good for the vegetation. So once the regenerative capacity lost, then the soil is more prone for the desertification. So desertification, it is a systematic phenomena involving deterioration of the ecosystem due to change in the pressure of human adaptation or use system. So once there are some factors are absent in the ecosystem, like decomposers are not there, so along with that the small herb shrubs are not there, or vegetation is not there in the proper amount or in the proper condition, okay, resulting the organisms which are dependent on the vegetation, maybe directly or indirectly, will not able to live in that ecosystem or particular habitat. So that is one more impact because of the desertification. Now if this is because of a natural calamities or because of the nature, then the process or the rate of this depletion or the deterioration is very less. But nowadays, because of the human adaptation or because of the pressure which we are exerting on the environment or on the land for the settlement, because of that the desertification rate is very high. So it is a process through which fertile land is converted into infertile because of the absence of all these factors which are needed for the soil become a fertile. Okay. So desertification reduces the ability of a land to support life, affecting wild species, domestic animals, agricultural crops and people. So it is reducing the ability of land to support life. That means the soil is not fertile, it is not good for the cultivation of any crop. So affecting wild species, that means if our area previously it was a forest, and because of the human activities the soil has lost its the healing properties or the regeneration properties, that leads into a desertification, and the wild species or the very rare species which were able to adapt or were able to live and in that particular habitat. Okay, so this species may get affected. So this may affect to wild species not only for their survival, along with that all these conditions may change into a temperature. Now because of the desertification, that means there is less humidity in particular area and maybe a high temperature, resulting or these factors may affect a behavior of species or the animals. It may hamper the reproductive activities of this different species. Okay, and the number may reduce of wild species, or some of the species may become extinct. Domestic animals and agricultural crops and people. So domestic animals, for domestic animal, pastures are for their feeding. Okay, if the area is already converted into desertification, that means there is inavailability of the food. Agricultural crops will not able to sustain in the desertification or the area which is already converted or may be converted into a desert. People. The reduction in plant cover that accompanies desertification leads to accelerate soil erosion by wind and water. Reduction in plant cover, that means the vegetation is not there or the polyculture, the different plants are not present in the particular area. So of course the soil particles are detached from each other, and if these two agents, that means wind and water, if they are acting on that soil which is already the particles are loosed, they may accelerate the rate of the soil erosion. Okay, and that leads to a desertification. Now what are the causes of desertification? One of the reason is overgrazing. So overgrazing is the major cause of desertification worldwide. Plants of semi-arid areas are adapted to being eaten by sparsely scattered, large grazing mammals which move in response to the patchy rainfall common to these regions. Okay. So this plants of semi-arid areas, okay, are the main food for the cattle, and these are sparsely scattered. That means there is not a dense vegetation which you can observe because of the grazing mammals or the cattle. So poor grazing management after accidental burning of semi-arid vegetation can be a cause of a desertification. So incorrect irrigation practices in arid areas can cause salinization, that means the buildup of salt in the soil which can prevent plant growth. So sometimes salts may get accumulated in the soil layer and it is not good for the plants, although not all plants can survive on that the salinization or the saline what we can say, the soil which is having a high amount of salts. When the practices described above coincide with the drought, the rate of desertification increases dramatically. That means if the conditions are already serious, and in that case the drought, that means scarcity of water is there, that may accelerate the desertification process or the end result. Now, another cause of desertification is destruction of vegetation in arid region, often for the fuel wood. So, because of the population explosion, people are or the individuals are shifting towards the forest, because there is no place for even settlement, and the good source of fuel is wood. For that, there is a tree cutting or the plant cutting is done, resulting a desertification, because once there is no plants, okay, resulting, or when there are no plants, what the soil particles are not able to hold the water molecules. And another cause is deforestation. So because of the mining activities or the dam building and the human interference, that is also a human interference, but even for because of the illegal trades, okay, deforestation can occur or occurs. So that may result into a desertification. Now, what are the another causes of desertification? That is poverty, political instability, deforestation, overgrazing, and bad irrigation practices can all undermine the land's stability. So, because of the poverty, people are shifting towards the forest habitat or the nearer to the forest. Now, political instability, that means we need a leader who can take a firm decision to stop desertification or the deforestation. Then only the issues like desertification or the soil degradation can be resolved. Overgrazing and bad irrigation practices, okay, that can all undermine land's stability. Over 250 million people are directly affected by desertification. In addition, some 1000 million, that is 1 billion people in over 100 countries are at risk. These people includes many of the world's poorest, most marginalized and politically weak citizens. Now, why humans or the human population is at the risk along with the different animals? Because directly or indirectly we are dependent on the vegetation. That means the vegetation, that means on the soil. If the soil is good, that means the vegetation or the plant is good, and the organisms which are at the different trophic levels or levels of the ecosystem, okay, all are directly or indirectly dependent on the plants or on the vegetation. So if the soil is good, that means plants are there or the quality is good. That means the ecosystems or the food chain is running properly or maintaining its equilibrium. And if the main factor is the soil, it is disrupted or disturbed, okay, and it is not the good quality, that means it is harm or it is hampering all the ecosystem. or the organisms which are present at each trophic level. Now these are the causes of desertification which we have seen. Okay, and along with that there is a climate crisis. So this is a natural what do you say, the cause, but somewhere to change the climate, okay, humans or the activities are responsible. Now we'll see in flow chart. Okay, so droughts are there when there is a water shortage. Okay, and this is affecting natural and man-made ecosystem. So and droughts are there or the conditions are there, it is increasing aridity or the aridity, and if climatic changes are there, okay, that results into a desertification. So natural and man-made ecosystem, okay, if there are manipulations are done by because of man or because of natural calamities or the activities, that may result or that leads to a desertification. Okay, so what are the natural and man-made ecosystem changes or the factors are poor soil, soil erosion, susceptible vegetation, poor land use, water scarcity. Along with that, if what are the other factors, that are depopulation, aging, lack of opportunities and poverty. So these are the impacts of desertification on human population. Okay. So the droughts increases aridity, and because of climate change the desertification happens. Now how to control desertification? In order to control desertification, the following steps should be taken. Ban on cutting off desert vegetation. That means we should conserve plantation in that particular area to maintain the water quality or the water level. Plantation of ecologically suitable plants in affected area. That means the plants which can hold water in a higher quantity. Development of pasture lands to release pressure from sustainable areas. Control overgrazing in desertified area. So there will be a less soil erosion, and that will prevent desertification. Proper use of available groundwater resources. Management of land use and farming practices. So available groundwater, that is proper use of available groundwater resources, that means we should not overuse groundwater resources. Whenever there is a groundwater, then only plant roots can go deep inside and get water. So if groundwater level depletes, okay, or it reduces, resulting there is a less water available for the plants. Management of land use and farming practices, okay, and a public awareness should be generated. Okay, that means if we maintain the soil quality or the topmost soil layer in a good condition, then only the vegetation will be rooted or able to survive on that land, and resulting the dependent organisms, that means the ecosystem will be able to maintain the equilibrium. So to combat desertification or to fight against this desertification, the 17th of June, okay, it is celebrated as World Day to combat desertification.